The views expressed on this program do not belong to LSU, the Manship School, Tiger TV, Mike the Tiger, or any other being. They are the absurd creation of writer and host Travis Cobb, so sue him, lawyers. Howdy, and welcome to the update. Hello folks, and welcome to the update. My name is Travis Cobb. Before we begin, I'd like to express my deepest sorrows for any victims of Monday's Virginia Yard shootings. I just want to let anyone involved know my thoughts are with the victims and their families. So this is the update, Season 3. First off, I'd like to apologize to my potential viewing audience. The season opener was supposed to air last week, but our recording had some sound issues. When the video played, there was no sound. I have a high opinion of my looks, but I don't think anyone would want to watch my face say things for 15 minutes and try to fill in the blanks of what I'm saying later. We've got a show for you today. I'll let you fill in what adjective to use for it. After the show is done, you have two choices, hilarious or thought-provoking. There is no middle ground because I hear there's wars and stuff. Hey, speaking of that stuff that I've heard.
Russia's indicated a new willingness to join with the international community in pushing Syria to give up its chemical weapons, which the Assad regime used in an attack that killed more than 1,000 people on August 21st. I also asked Congress to postpone a vote on the use of military force while we pursue this diplomatic path.
That's strange. Recently, whenever the war drum's been beating for a long time, it leads to something, a strike, a drone, an intervention. I've got to give Secretary of State John Kerry his due when it's deserved.
We have reached a shared assessment of the amount and type of chemical weapons possessed by the Assad regime, and we are committed to the rapid assumption of control by the international community of those weapons.
And that's great news to hear. And none of that would be true if our former Cold War adversaries hadn't melted their cold shoulders on our relationship and helped us in Syria.
These are all positive developments. We'll keep working with the international community to see that Assad gives up his chemical weapons so that they can be destroyed.
Didn't really ask you to talk, but you're the president, so okay, yes, these are positive developments. And the positive developments can spread out to our relationship with Russia. We're going to have to be more than frosty friends with them if we're going to make any headway. They can understand why we have such a problem with their stance on gay rights, or lack thereof. We can get why they won't give us Snowden. We can have a win-win relationship if we can build a solid relationship on trust and respect.
But we are not just going to take Russia and Assad's word for it.
A lot of cynics were of the view that Putin would not respond. But he did respond. Not because he's a good guy.
Okay, I needed this. I only have cash right now, but I needed that reality check from those two. Everyone is looking out for their best interest in their situation. It's just the way the world has worked on a national level and a human level since forever. The UN has power, sure, but it comes down to what President Obama wants to do in Syria. Since citizens here are against a strike that he really wanted, and the UN is hesitant on a strike that he really wanted, he's put it in the power of Congress, but not without giving us this caution.
And since this plan emerged only with a credible threat of U.S. military action, we will maintain our military posture in the region to keep the pressure on the Assad regime.
So sleep tight, peace seekers. We're just keeping a military presence focused on a country we're negotiating peace with themselves for. You know, diplomacy. When we come back, we turn our focus to a domestic issue that we need to take a closer look at. It's gun rights and gun sights when the update returns. Welcome back to the update. We've been talking a lot about Syria and national politics. The focus is on President Obama and what will happen next. What's happening on the other side of the aisle? Representative Diane Black talking about how the GOP wants to look forward.
This is just the latest in a string of bipartisan efforts to repeal and protect Americans from the president's health care.
Or maybe we're going to fight the battles from 2010. Sure, maybe you don't like a law and want to do everything you can as a party to make sure it disappears. But when you've tried dozens of times with only minor victories against the new health care law, it seems like you're beating a dead horse. Incidentally, that's not covered by Obamacare. Instead, maybe focus your attention on something that's not hyperpartisan, something people from both aisles can agree on. Of course, I'm talking about guns in this week's Missing the Mark. We go to Iowa, the first place people turn to when election season rolls around. Fun fact about that state, though, you don't have to be able to see to own guns. A new law says those who meet minimum requirements can get their permit online, even blind people. Michael Barber explains how he would sense and respond to danger with a handgun.
I would aim by hearing, by feel. You know, the person's going to be in close proximity to me. I hope I never have to do that. I really do. I would just soon not. But, you know, if I had to protect myself, yes, I would.
I hope you do too. Now, I've never been blind in my life. The prompter would just be an absolute nightmare if I were. That said, I'm not comfortable with a blind person trying to stop a potential crime through vigilante justice by feeling a situation, because it's vigilante justice. You know who else is in close proximity to you when you're in a dangerous situation? Other potentially innocent victims. That's not to say he's going to fire at the first sound he hears, though.
People think that they're going to shoot blindly, just start shooting at noises, and people don't understand that visually impaired people are reasonable people too.
I certainly wouldn't just begin shooting willy-nilly to protect myself. You know, and especially if I didn't know for sure where it was coming from, because I don't want to shoot innocent people. You know, I'd duck and hide.
What's the use of even having the gun in the first place if you're ducking and hiding? I guess it beats taking shots in the dark with vision or blind. Okay, moving on. Throughout President Obama's terms, we've seen a frenzied paranoia about the government coming to take our guns. Instead, it's just the opposite. It's easier for people to get guns. The gun has somewhat become a protagonist in many narratives. Stand your ground comes to mind. While the Second Amendment doesn't guarantee the right to bear arms, this glorification of guns can have a negative impact.
A kid had placed an app on his phone and was pretending to be shooting students. Said it was a result of him, being frustrated and tired of being bullied.
And thank goodness he didn't try to do something real with his frustrations. Taking away or adding guns isn't the answer to the country's violence problem. There's a problem with violence because there's a problem with the way we perceive it as a solution. Adding more guns or taking them away isn't a solution, it's missing the mark. Coming up on the update, I sit down with Student Government President John Woodard. We'll talk and stuff. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back to the update. Sitting with me is Student Government President John Woodard. Thanks for joining us today. I want to get to talk about your agenda for this upcoming semester, but first things first, I'm sure you've heard about the controversy with the sign that was on an LSU fraternity. You were a member of a fraternity. Does that frustrate you as a member of a fraternity and as an LSU student, as a poor reflection?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, thank you for having me on here, Travis. But what happened with the decals on Saturday, I think just a bad joke gone wrong, really. And I think obviously with all the national attention and you asking me that question obviously gives way to this being a very serious matter. And I think all those guys, they recognize their mistake and their lack of judgment. I think, hopefully it won't ever happen again. But it certainly made, today's news noteworthy.
Is it, and that's a small population of people on LSU's student community that doesn't really reflect a lot of people's views, and I don't think it honestly reflects what they think personally. It might have been a group thing with a joke that just went too far, but it does put like a negative light on our university. What's a way that in the future that can sort of be prevented?
Well, I think there needs to be a mechanism in place, a procedure, and I think we need to have, before that even goes up, that needs to be monitored. And I think you can't control every student on this campus, and obviously there's going to be some times where there's a lack of judgment, but I do think as a community, if we can rally and show that this is not what we stand for and that we are LSU and there's a higher purpose to what we do here, then I think that we will avoid situations like this in the future.
Okay, and we're going to stick with football for a bit, just a little bit of a different thing. The first home game against UAB, the Lions getting into the stadium were a bit of a problem for a lot of people. This week was a lot different, a lot better. What were some of the things that y'all did to kind of get back at that? You talked with us last week. What worked? What didn't work?
Well, what didn't work for the UAB game was the snake line, where it's somewhat of a zigzag leading up to the scanners at the student gates. But this past weekend, we switched back to the shoot style, which we've done in previous years, and it worked wonders. Although it was Kent State, so there wasn't, the.
Will there be problems whenever we take on the Auburns and the Floridas?
I don't foresee any, and athletics feels the same way, but we won't know until we see that higher volume of students come through the gate. But I think we should be clear for the rest of the season.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, what else is sort of, those things just kind of popped up at the beginning of the semester as events like that do. What does student government kind of have on tap for upcoming this semester?
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, today, actually coming from our Student Tech Fee Oversight Committee meeting where, we talked about upgrading our internet software on campus. I know LSU Secure can be slow for students, for quite a few students. So we've been working on upgrading those things. And we also have a few different programming events coming up. But one big thing is an internship database. I know the Mass Comm School provides that, but we're looking to do an LSU-wide community internship database. We have a few other programming.
I know. I'm going to be looking for jobs.
We all need jobs.
Quick prediction for this upcoming weekend, LSU Auburn. What do you think happens?
38-17. I think we win this one easy.